So that's some of the team members and a couple of guests there. Everybody's welcome to drop in. So I have a very, very special guest today, and it's her second time she's been on the show. She was on in 2021, and that's during COVID, and she wasn't live. So I'm very grateful and humble that we got my good friend Bita Lisi on here from Stonegate Paralegal. And today she brings 20 years of real estate experience with her. As far as I'm concerned, she probably knows more about Landlord and Tenancy Act than most people I know. So whenever we have a problem, we reach out to her and her husband and their team. So we're honored to have you here, right? So if you want to just say hello and just tell them what you're bringing with us today.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Daryl, for having us here live today. I'm looking forward to talking everything about landlords and tenant matters.
Fantastic. It's something that it's a topic that pretty much everybody's involved, because you're either a landlord or you're a tenant, or you just might be a single ownership, but you may be thinking of one or the other. And so one of the things that I really noticed now that, rents have gone up tremendously in the last couple of years, but, you also look at interest rates have gone up very dramatically. So both things, whether it be home ownership or rental, have increased dramatically.
That's right.
What has that done to the rental industry?
Well, it's done a lot. It's the increase in interest rates have resulted in landlords not being able to carry or offset some of the expenses.
We're going to look up.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have a large audience out there today.
The increase in the interest rates have impacted the landlords in the sense that a lot of these landlords are not able to offset their expenses in receiving the rental income. So what has resulted in that is that they've approached their tenants and they've asked them to increase the rent, whether legally or illegally, they've done that. And if the tenant takes a position where they're saying, no, I'm not going to increase the rent illegally, I'm only entitled to increase the rent per the guideline percentage, which is still not even enough to cover the expenses, then the landlord resorts to other things like serving notices that they want to move in when they don't want to move in, or they don't have the intentions of moving in. And that results in bad faith evictions.
Well, that's what I see a lot of that. I'm just going to move in and I'm going to kick my tenant out, right? That seems to be the simple answer to a lot of things. But tenants, a lot of them are watching. So for 1 year, they're, as far as I know, right, they cannot move in. They have to move in for the year. They can't rent it out to somebody else.
That's right. So if landlords are serving notices for their own use, they have to move in for at least 1 year. It says so in the notice.
Yes.
So before landlords or agents,
what is that, an N12?
It's an N12.
Right.
It's an N12. Read the notices. Don't just send them out because you know the name of the notice and you think you know what the notice entails. So read it.
So let me ask you this. So I'm a tenant and you're my landlord, and my lease is coming up the end of August, because I actually have that coming up, right? So I'm just, hopefully I'm done today or tomorrow, I'm going to call the son-in-law and ask him if they're going to renew it for another year or whatever. So if I don't renew it, they automatically can stay there.
Yes, they can. Actually, there's no benefit to you as a landlord to renew your lease. I'll tell you why. Firstly, if your plans change and you want to sell the property, you can't because you're tied down to a property, meaning that you're restricting yourself to that, to a specific buyer who's an investor and wants to take over the tenancy. Secondly, if you want to move into the property yourself, you can't do that because you're within a lease. The only party who benefits from a lease or renewal is the tenant, because they're guaranteed another term.
So instead of August, so I just put in my check for June now. Is late. I'm always late cashing my check, unfortunately.
June, we're in July.
Well, yeah, I know, but I just cashed it for June.
Oh, right? Landlords don't do that.
Right. Well, I guess I'm a good landlord. So anyway, so their term is up in August. So I could call them, do they wish to stay on? So let's say I only want them to stay on 6 months.
You don't make that call.
So how does that work?
So what is the reason you only want them there for 6 months?
No, they can stay there a year. They can stay 2 years. But let's say in 6 months, I want to sell it, or I have a family member come in, they need to move in there or something.
So if your plans change and you want somebody to move in, you have to serve notice, whether in 6 months or a year. If you want to sell the property, you have to, you can either sell it with them inside. Once you have a firm agreement of purchase and sale, depending on the buyer's intentions, you can either serve notice for the purchaser's own use, or you have to do a cash for keys and get them out so you can prep the property for sale.
Right. So let's say I sold it in a month. So the lease was up now. This is now, say, February. And now I want to sell it. So do I give them notice before I sell it or after I sell it?
After you sell it. You need a firm agreement of purchase and sale before you serve notice.
So I can't give them notice beforehand.
No, you can't. No such notice exists that the landlord has an intent to sell. It doesn't exist.
So for lots of people, they always say, okay, let them get it out of there. And then they're giving them notice, but they haven't sold it. So unless they actually sold it, they can't get them out of there.
They cannot get them out of there. In fact, if you start serving multiple N12 notices and then you file with the board, you now have to declare those N12 notices in the past that you've served with this tenant or any other tenant in the past 2 years.
What do you mean by that? So this is my N12.
So that's your N12.
You gave me this.
So let's say I'm the landlord, yes, and you're a very difficult tenant. And I acted on emotion and I said, Daryl, I'm going to move in. So I'm going to serve you with an N12. And then when the dust settled, I said, no, I'm not going to move in. You continue your tenancy. And then a year later, I say, Daryl, I want more money. So you move out, or I'm going to serve you a notice for moving in. If I serve you a second N12 or a third N12 and I file with the landlord and tenant board, I now have to declare that I served you a previous N12. Full disclosure now.
Full disclosure.
Right? You have to serve notices in good faith with clean hands.
Wow.
Right? These notices, Daryl, they can't be used as a loophole in order to end the tenancy. Not because the tenant, blocked you from Facebook, is not answering your phone calls, is not returning your messages. None of that matters. The N12 notice must be served in good faith.
Now, who serves the N12?
Either the legal representative or the landlord. That's it.
Now, how do I get that to them? Because obviously, as the tenant, they're dodging the landlord because they know the rules better than the landlord.
They do.
The tenants are the masters of the tenancy act.
They do. And now with the internet at their fingertip, they have access to the landlord and tenant board. They have access to Facebook forums. They have access. So they know notices must be served in accordance with the rules of procedure. So it's not like real estate where you can scan your agreement of purchase and sale, put it onto DocuSign or HelloSign and send it over. And then you can be in, I don't know, the Middle East and you open it up and you sign with your finger. No, the rules of the wheels of justice spin very slowly, and landlords must serve their tenants in accordance to the rules of procedure. So by handing the document to the tenant.
So, but
you just
I'm
said,
a tenant, I'm dodging.
You're dodging me. So I can put it in the mail. I can put it in the mailbox or where mail is usually delivered.
Now, would you take a picture of that?
100%.
Right. So
yeah.
If you're going to put it in the mail, you date and time it and you put it into the mail.
Take a picture of it or take a picture of yourself putting it in the mail. Usually it's not required, but just in case you have a challenging tenant at the board.
What about a registered mail?
So it's a registered mail is interesting because
they might not sign it.
That's right. So if they don't sign it, it's not deemed served. And a lot of agents call me at the office and they say, what method of service do you use? We use regular mail. Regular mail goes to their door. Whether or not they check their mailbox, that's on them. But if they go to the mail, like if they go to Canada Post and they don't sign to pick up that registered mail, it's not deemed served.
So that's the problem with registered mail, because they know it's probably something they don't want. So I'm not going to receive it.
That's right. And now Canada Post doesn't have to disclose who picked up that piece of mail. Throw it in the mail.
FedEx drops something off. Just anyone can sign it.
Anyone can sign it. Right? That's right. That's right.
So that is, I think, the biggest problem that I've seen, that, the landlords, and I'm not sticking up for the landlords, even though I am a landlord, but I'm also a tenant and other things. So, they invest a lot of money in their investment and they've lost a lot of control, right? Because, you know better than anybody how hard it is to get tenants out. You got some very tough tenants out for us that should have not been in there. and they were just milking the system like crazy. Their circumstances, but then there's milking the system, and that's what a lot of them tend to do, right?
Yeah. You see, the thing is, Daryl, I hear time and time that the rules are all for the tenants, and that's not necessarily true. So let me clarify.
Okay, good. That would be fantastic.
The law provides a balance for both parties, for both the landlord and the tenant. That's the law. The challenge or the issue is the broken system. And what I mean by that is that 5 years ago, if I wanted to evict a tenant, I would serve notice. In 30 to 60 days, we'd be in front of the board. Right now, if we serve notice, it's going to take 7 to 8 months just to receive a notice of hearing.
And they're not even paying rent. So that's what I don't understand. So I've invested $1 million or $1.2 million. I'm paying maintenance of $1,500 a month. My taxes are another $2,400 a year. So just out of my own pocket every month, plus the mortgage. So I'm out maybe $2,000, $2,500 a month.
And that's if you don't have to do any repairs.
Yeah, if I don't have to do any repairs, right?
That's right.
That means someone has to carry that for 7 months. Not everybody can carry that for 7 months. They're going like this, right?
Yeah. And that's why some landlords, especially the smaller landlords, they don't have a choice. So what happens is they resort to selling, right? They have no choice. There's thousands of landlords that during the pandemic, their properties went under power of sale because they just couldn't do it without that rental income.
So how does that work? So I'm in a property. I haven't paid rent for 7 or 8 months. You're like this. You're like being choked like a chicken there with somebody ready to go to the dinner table. And so now we want to get them out because now we're selling the property. How do we get them out?
Not because you're selling the property. A landlord, a landlord has to have cause to evict.
Well, I haven't paid rent in 7 or 8 months.
That's cause. The problem is getting to the board. So you can put a request in to shorten the time, to speed up or expedite the hearing process. But I'll tell you, if you're in the boat with 80,000 other landlords that are not being paid, then your request to shorten the time is not really going to be considered an emergency for them to expedite your hearing.
So I heard now that they've gone and done Zoom now, right?
Yes.
So supposedly, now I don't know how proven it is. I did a video on it.
Yeah.
And it was about, the Landlord and Tenant Act. Now they can in front of a tribunal on Zoom versus trying to get live, which we know 7, 8 months away, 9 months away, whatever. And the poor landlords like this, tenants in there, like they don't care. They're going to stay as long as they can. They're living rent free, right?
Yeah. 95% of these headaches can be eliminated during the vetting process. So in the very beginning, when you're vetting your tenants, don't just get anyone in there because you want to rent it out as soon as possible. No, vet them, check them out on social media. Social media is our lives on the internet, right? If the prospective tenant is saying, I don't have a pet, and you see Daryl King saying, oh yeah, I love my dog. I mean, right? People love their pets more than they love their children sometimes. You'll see pictures of them on social media, right? Vet your tenants. Actually, there's 2 tools that are newer tools that people should be utilizing. One is a website called openroom.ca.
Everybody write that down.
Openroom.ca.
Openroom.ca.
Yes, this website was born because 2 very angry landlords came together. They had enough of the board. They had enough of the process and the broken system, and they said, "We're gonna open up a website." And any landlord who has had their matter heard at the board can upload their board order. So Daryl, you can go on there and just as a keyword, put in Bita Lisi or your prospective tenants' names and see if there are any orders that have been uploaded on openroom.ca. Same concept with canlii.org, CANLII.org.
And where's that one?
And it's the same concept, but it's more provincially governed.
Right.
Yeah. Whereas openroom.ca is more raw. Yes.
More private.
Yeah. Yeah.
So some guys had enough.
Some guys said,
and they said, we're going to open
enough is enough. Yeah. Right. Yeah. We're going to upload every single order on this website. Utilize these tools when you're vetting prospective tenants, right? Ask them, what is your source of income? Provide us with your references. I want to talk to your previous landlord because your current landlord will tell me everything under the sun to get you out. If your current landlord has agreed to waive $20,000 in arrears, you're not going to know that. But the landlord you want to speak to is their previous landlord who has no ties to the tenant because they're the ones that are going to tell you the truth.
Yeah, they're out. They're out of
They're
my hair.
out. I don't
Now
know.
they're going to hear the truth.
That's right. There
Right?
you go.
Because if you have a bad tenant in there, you're going to say anything possible to get that tenant out of there and they go somewhere else. But in reality, that might not be reality.
That's right.
So we do credit checks, as you know, in real estate, we do credit checks. So this other thing, room of view or whoever,
open room,
which go into there.
Yes,
100%. Go into Facebook or Instagram
and do your own credit checks.
Right.
None of this Credit Karma or any other apps. Do your own credit checks, guys. Hook up with a really good mortgage broker, and they will hopefully they like you and they'll check the credit for you. But definitely do your own credit check. Don't just look at the score. Look at their ability to pay. Some people get all excited. Oh my God, they have 700 score. So what? How many times have they missed a payment? Have they missed any payments? Are they rebuilding their credit? Is this new credit, old credit? What is it? Look at the entirety. Equifax is a great tool. I use Equifax for my own properties.
That's what we've always used.
Yeah, yeah. But those apps where you download it on your phone,
not good.
No.
So they need to dig a little deeper. So the best way to what I'm hearing is proactive versus active originally, because some people are just want to get someone immediately.
Yes.
And they're letting them come in the door. Once you get them in the door, you can't get them out.
You're gone.
Right?
So yeah.
So be much more proactive moving forward. Do a bigger, harder research, right? So we do a lot of tenants here, as a real estate company. We're renting and leasing out both ends. So we represent both parties. So, there definitely has to be rules and regulations to protect both parties. I just think that myself, it's gone a little more favor of the tenants. And, like I said, I hate to see I see some of our owners of properties getting their stuck 7 to 11 months to a year. They're not getting paid. If it's a house, I got one, the poor guy's, I think he's going to have a heart attack. Him and his wife have already split up. They live next door to them. They rent it out because he wants to tear it down and build a house. And the people he originally rented out to have left. Now there's other tenants in there.
Yes.
And, they've got dogs there. It's like a party house. It's just 24/7. There could be 10 or 11 people there renting out rooms, like an Airbnb. It's not an Airbnb. It's just rented out to one couple originally. And that one guy is gone already. He's not even there. So he's crying to me. They haven't paid rent in so long, or then they'll give him a little bit of money. And the dogs are shitting all over the place and loud music. Please go in there. So it's just a complete nightmare.
Circus. Yeah.
Right. And he's ready to, like I said, he's ready to have a heart attack. He's just his health is not too good.
And can I just add something to that? During the vetting process, when you're meeting the tenant, pay attention to all the small details, all the red flags. Okay. And I'll tell you, I'm a little paranoid when it comes to tenants because this is what I do.
Yes.
So we were renting out one of our own units and a guy showed up. He looked great on paper. He looked even better in person. And then I said to him, so this is a 2-bedroom and are you a single guy? Are you looking for yourself or do you have a wife? Do you have a family? Do you have kids? Like, what's the story? And he goes, well, I don't know. I may get a roommate. I may have somebody move in with me. Yes,
So
exactly.
First red light going on.
First red light. And I go as far as looking at the way they put themselves together. If they have a car and I'm parked in the parking lot, I like to just peep into the car, not like look into the car, but peep into their car. Are they clean? How do they keep their vehicle? Right? Usually if your vehicle is a disaster, guess what? The way you live is also a disaster. But if you're clean, if your vehicle is clean, more than likely you take care of the property as well.
Well, it's funny. I got a place in my place I had bought for my parents at that time. And so my father passed away. So then it's too big for my mother. So I ended up renting out to a guy. He was the president of a charity corporation and they were living downtown in Etobicoke. They lived there for 5. I even give them less rent because they were such great tenants, right? They caused me no grief. They were super nice, and we became very good friends. And they left, and I have this other lady. She's coming up to 1 year. Again, very nice lady. Whatever, zero issue. But I'm willing to take a little less money to have a better tenant, right?
Yes. The only problem with that, okay, and it's a little problem, but you may want to consider it, is when the tenants start causing you a problem. What do? Because now you're charging rent that's less than
money.
what you should.
Yeah.
You thought this tenant was a good tenant, and they're not. And it's only a problem when the tenant becomes a problem, right? But I totally agree with you. If you're a good tenant, keep the rent a little lower, and then at least have someone that's paying consistently.
Yes, that's what I've been looking for. Some wood. There's no wood around here, right? But so far so good that way. But like I see just through clients and stuff like that, like I have tenants, and I'm a tenant here. So, like I know someone with a commercial. Do you do much in commercial?
We only do residential.
Only residential.
Commercial is a different beast.
Yeah, there's a lot of different rules and regulations that are part of that. So if I'm a landlord, then I'm hiring a young couple come to me. Their credit score is like 720, whatever. Looks like their job is not so strong. One's only 1 year and the other one's just starting up another place. Is that a red light for you?
Well, not really, but you still want to do your due diligence. You want to make sure that their employment is real, first of all.
Yes.
So you want to call the employer, you want to do a Google search, you want to check them out on Better Business Bureau, just to make sure it's real. Because a lot of the times with tools like Canva and Photoshop, a lot of income verification letters
are false. I think what I'm seeing and hearing now, someone's telling me about 50%.
I would say about,
right?
Yeah.
So in other words, so they have documents, and now with Canva or a lot of these other marketing things, they can make up something that from their job. Hey, I'm making X number there. I've been there for 2 years or 3 years, whatever the case might be.
And they have a phone, a designated cell phone where their friend will pick up and confirm the income.
So you really got to do your research. Really? You got to check the references out fully.
Yes.
Right.
Make sure they're real. Check them out on social media.
Well, social media. Well, sure. Listen, I'm not on social media. Right. You come and ask me. I say I'm not on social media. Right.
Who's not on social media? Right? Unless you shut off your social media because I don't know. I'm speculating now.
Right. I'm just looking for things that as a landlord, as a tenant, how they cover whatever, right? Like I say, I know the tenants know all the rules and regulations far better than 90% of the landlords.
Yes.
And I find this is where the biggest problem is, because the landlords don't really know the repercussions of picking a bad tenant.
That's right.
Right.
And the reason why they don't know is because in my opinion, they're not proactive. So what they do is to remove that liability from themselves, they call a realtor. And when it gets to the point where they're having trouble, they call me and they say, well, my realtor put them in. I want to put a RICO complaint against my realtor. And we are a 99.9% landlord-based firm where we represent landlords. And I'm really hard on my landlords. And I say, at the end of the day, your realtor's job is to bring you a 1-year lease, right? There's nothing in the lease listing agreement that says the realtor has to vet the prospects. It's on you, landlord. Get involved. At the end of the day, this is your property. So that's what's going on. A lot of landlords are putting the blame on their realtors.
All the time.
All the time.
So who's going to go wrong? Who are you going to blame?
The realtor. That's right. You should know. Exactly.
As the realtor doesn't know the background, because as I'm the listing broker, you come in as the buyer broker. I really know nothing about your client other than whatever you give me here.
That's right.
Right. Which I hand to the owner.
That's
of the
right.
property. Right. So they see as much as I see.
That's it.
Right.
That's
so
it.
I asked you a number of questions. You know these people personally. Most times they're not, they're going to say no. Right. Or not time. They may say, yeah, I know them. They're good. Right.
Yeah. But then you're going off of the realtor's word.
Yes.
You don't even know the realtor personally.
No, of course.
Right.
But that's why, again,
so
if I asked you, do you know these personally? And they say, yeah, they're good friends of mine, whatever. Then I want to know who you are and what you are all about.
That's right. That's right.
you know,
That's right.
because I want to look at every angle, right? Like, so
Yeah.
now, because I don't want to get stuck with someone going in there 6 months, 7 months, or a year, not paying rent, right? It's just,
Absolutely.
you know, not too many people can afford it. Like, you know, interest rates, when I went on my first mortgage, my interest rates were less than 1%. Now, 2 of them are going to have to be renewed.
Yeah.
And what was the latest thing I just got from the bank today, you know, so a 2-year fixed term is 5.69, right? New rate, 5.99, 3-year fixed, current rate, 5.49, new rate, 5.99, 5-year fixed, 5.49, 5.79, 5.19. So 10-year fixed, I don't know who's taking a 10-year fixed. It's like 6.24, 6.54, right? So the cost of carrying that mortgage went from here up to here. So a little rental increase doesn't cover the amount the mortgage went up. And that's what a lot of the investors are having problems with.
That's
today,
right.
Right.
That's right. And as an investor myself, I tell whoever is a landlord, I tell them, you have to treat this rental game like a business.
It is a business.
It is a business.
It is a business.
Because it is.
If you're an investor, it's a 100%
That's
a
right.
business.
That's right.
You are me Inc.
That's it.
And you got to be prepared. Like I said, when interest rates were at an all-time low, everybody was just wanting to buy, and rightfully so, because it was free money.
That's right.
Right? To carry something really didn't cost you a whole lot of money. So you could make the profit. But as the rates went up, there's no profit anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Like a lot of people are in the negative. And it's okay to be in the negative as long as you can carry it.
That's right.
Right?
That's
Because
right.
it will come back.
And that's why so many landlords are resorting to selling their properties. The problem is because of the rents that have skyrocketed, like you mentioned earlier on, it's hard for a tenant to move out and find a comparable at the same amount of rent that they're paying their current landlord.
Yeah. The longer a tenant's been in there,
That's right.
they're paying a lot less rent. So they're the ones that are the hardest ones to get out of there.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
You know, and that's why you say about giving it too low, because you can only have an increase. Like next year's increase of what, 2.5%?
This year's is 2.5.
2.5.
Next year's will come out in about August,
That's not it.
September.
So this year, 2023, the interest rate is 2.5 that you can raise your rent accordingly. But if it's a new building,
If it's a new build, built and occupied after November 15, 2018, you can increase the rent whatever you want.
Yeah.
If the property was built and occupied prior to that date, which I was going to
Well, it
say,
should be.
yeah,
right?
those properties are under rent control,
Yes.
right? And therefore you can only increase it per the percentage.
Yeah. But I don't understand, after 218, the newer buildings, right? So the last 6 years, for argument's sake, 7 years, that they can increase it to whatever they want.
Well, something's going to happen very soon because of the person that got into power that I believe is going to put all properties under rent control. Don't quote me on that, but
But it's
I think
most
something
likely
is coming.
coming out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because the rents are getting out of hand. You're looking for a 1-bedroom apartment, 1-bedroom condominium. You're looking at $3,000 or $4,000. I mean, who has that kind of money on one income?
Yeah, not too many people.
Not too many people.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why I say they should go get a mortgage, right? So if you're a renter and you're paying too much money, give us a call and we'll see if we can talk to a good mortgage broker to get you into something. Because the biggest problem they have is coming up with their down deposit.
Payment. Yes.
Right? So, you know, they might have to borrow that, but it might be better to try and borrow that from somebody and go buy something. Because it's going to cost you less money to buy something than it is to rent something today.
That's right.
Right? Especially when you go downtown.
Oh, yes.
Right? Like I see, you know, people are getting for a little bachelor place, $2,000, $2,100, right? And it's like,
It's crazy.
you know, it's no bigger than a shoebox.
Yeah, about 15, 20 years ago, when I first started in real estate, people were renting as a stepping stone to being able to purchase. Now,
They try and save money up.
that's right.
Right.
And it was affordable.
You know, but, you know, if you're paying $3,000, $3,500, $4,000, where are you going to save any money?
That's right.
Right?
And that's just for rent.
That's just for the
That's
rent.
just for the rent.
The only good part about the rental part is they don't pay the taxes and they don't pay the maintenance.
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So they're
yeah.
still stuck in the landlord to pay those
Yeah.
things.
Unless they incorporate that into the rent.
Yeah, well, that's what they got to figure out, no
Right.
matter what.
That's right. There's
It's
expenses.
there,
That's right.
right?
Yeah.
You know. So what advice would you give to a landlord? You're a brand new landlord. You've never rented out a place. You've just got your first house. You bought, you had some equity in your home, and now you took a line of credit to go buy one of these new pre-construction condo. What would be your advice to them to go rent their first place? The condo they bought 2 or 3 years ago, it just closed last month. Now they have occupancy, right?
Mhm.
So what should be their first steps they should do?
Well, the first step they should do, they should familiarize themselves with the act. Okay. Maybe hook up with a paralegal that they trust, that they can turn to for questions. Because whether you're a new landlord or whether you've been in the business for 20, 30 years, it's inevitable that you're going to come to a problem. I myself even have problems with my own tenants. So definitely hook up with a paralegal that can help you. The next thing is hook up with a realtor that you trust and you rely on, or you can rely on, to help you vet prospective tenants. Because there are some realtors that are great at that, and then there are some realtors that should not be helping clients
Because they don't know enough themselves.
because they don't know. They don't
Right.
know. They don't know.
So the realtor should definitely study the act and know the act themselves. And if you're a new landlord, you're going to be renting out your first property or your first investment, you should understand and read that act.
Yes.
Because, a lot of people have done that. You know what, I'm going to buy it for my kids, whatever the case might be, even that I'll rent it out for now till they're ready to go to university or move down Toronto to go to school or whatever.
And you don't have to read the entire act because it's long and very boring.
Like
At least
that's
right. At least the sections of the landlord responsibilities, section 20 to 33. Right? Those are
pages.
13 pages. And they're very short. But those are the landlord's responsibilities. Section 34 to about 36 is the tenant's responsibilities. So maybe from sections 20 to 38, you should familiarize yourself. The other sections are, it's the law. It is what it is.
So what about, I have a place and I don't want to have smokers in there. Can I enforce that?
Well, they're in the Ontario Standard Lease. Okay. There's a section that pertains to smoking, and you can click the box of whether there are no rules or whether there should be rules or there are rules. You should always have rules with respect to smoking. If you're renting out a condominium, ask the condo board. Okay, ask the condo corp for their rules with respect to smoking and attach that to the Ontario Standard Lease. In fact, have the tenant initial those rules. If you are renting a house, draft your own smoking rules. They should not be smoking inside the property. I've never seen anyone get evicted for smoking inside the property. Sorry, Daryl.
Well, that's what I'm saying, right?
But the rules are the rules, right? They, in good faith, when you're signing an agreement, if you agree to that, you should be abiding by that. Not everybody does.
Yeah. Well, most condos, you're not allowed to smoke in any common elements.
That's right.
Hallways, gym.
And your balcony is a common element.
And your balcony.
You should not be smoking on your balcony.
But everybody goes out.
But everybody
if they go on the balcony, at least it's to start. You're outside the building.
Yes.
Right. But it is a common element.
It's a common element.
Right?
And what happens is a lot of people don't put that butt out. They
toss it.
They toss it.
And sometimes they go in the balcony below.
And it can cause fire.
Right. So smoking is one thing, right? So you can try and enforce it. You can put it in your contract that I don't want any smokers in my house or in my condo, right? And the bylaws for the condo building are no smoking in any of the common areas, which includes the balcony if there is a balcony.
Right.
So, then what about pets?
So let's talk about pets.
Let's talk about pets. And I'm a pet owner, right?
Okay.
So I love animals.
Me too. I love dogs. Now, even if the parties agree that they're not going to have any pets, if the landlord comes over to do a repair in the next 2 or 3 months and discovers, hey, Daryl, you have a little dog? There's
2 little dogs.
Right? There's nothing that a landlord can do. You cannot evict a tenant for having a pet. Now, if that pet is a dangerous animal, if that pet has attacked someone on the property, if the landlord is living on the main floor and the tenant is in the basement, and the landlord has allergic reactions as a result of this pet. And by allergic reaction, I don't mean just say, oh, I'm allergic to the pet. No, you have a medical report that says you are allergic. Then the landlord can proceed through the board, serve a notice, file an application, and then have the board determine whether or not that tenancy should come to an end. Remember, the board makes that determination, not the landlord.
Yeah, because a lot of cases, some condos say no dogs allowed.
Yeah.
Or animals, say but let's mostly say dogs. Or then they have weight restrictions.
That's right.
Not above
Let's talk about that.
so many pounds. Right?
Yeah. The condo.
So here, I just got one from someone here I don't want to pass up. So this is from Fred R. Is it permissible for the landlord to raise the rent above the annual increase limit if the building was built prior to November? It says 2028. Well, that's not even here yet. So maybe they meant 218.
Maybe they meant
what I'm saying. I would say 218, but it's being rented out for the first time after that date.
Oh, okay. So if units were built after
218,
November 15, 2018, they are not subject to rent control. A landlord can increase the rent to whatever they want.
Right.
Right. Okay. If the tenant takes a position where I'm not paying that, then the landlord will have to proceed through the legal channels and have the board make a decision.
Good. So now we're going to talk about dogs, right? Dogs or cats, whatever. Like I got a little place.
The condo rules.
The lake. There's a kitten, a little tabby about this big, and there's a big cat about this big. They don't live at that property. They're next door. They're so friendly. They're beautiful. I love them. But anyway, so you either have a big cat or a big guinea pig or a big dog, and you have a weight restriction.
Weight restrictions. And usually these are condo corporations.
I had that same problem. I put on 23 pounds after COVID, so I'm going to get evicted. Right?
So again, with the pets in the Ontario Standard Lease, you can attach the condo corporation's rules with respect to pets. The problem is a lot of agents don't do that. So when the landlord has to serve notice because the condo corp doesn't allow for pets, not the landlord, it's the actual condo corp, right?
Well, that's so the landlord can get in a lot of problem.
That's right. That's right. And we find that more often than not, it's not the landlord with the issue. It's the condo corp. Yes. That's the rule. So if the tenant turns around and says, well, nobody informed me, the realtor didn't tell me the rules with respect to pets, they can dispute it.
But they can't win against the board.
It's unlikely that they'll win.
Yeah, they can't win against the board.
No.
The board is the board.
The board is the boss.
The board's rule, the governing the building. The
That's right.
rules.
That's right.
So they're above any landlord.
They're above.
So
that's correct.
They would serve notice. Is this what would happen? So I'm the landlord. I got the tenants with two big honking big huge dogs, right? They're like 140 pounds or 150 pounds each. And they have like a little 12-pound limit for dogs. So they're well above that. They're not causing anybody any problem, but they could be scary. And they frighten people in the elevator and different things like that. So now there's a number of complaints. It's gone to the board. So now the board would send something to me as the landlord.
As the owner.
The owner.
Yeah.
And they would tell me to clean up my act.
Yes.
Correct?
Clean up your tenants act because you are responsible
that's
for the behavior.
That's right.
That's right.
So they would send a warning letter to me to clean up this issue. So I go, I'm going to look after it. I tell the tenant says,
you never told me, landlord.
Right.
Your agent never told me. So now what? Now I'm in a 1-year lease. I'm within my lease term. Now I have to pay for moving costs. I have to find another place. More than likely, I'm going to incur costs. I got to pay a higher rent. Guess who they're coming after for all these extra costs?
The landlord.
The landlord. Right? So agents, this can be avoided if you're renting out a condominium. Get the condo corporation rules.
So guys,
attach them.
We do a lot of rentals here. So this is a very good, valid point. Just don't take the rental because you want to take the rental. Know the information and how to handle it correctly, that you don't have an issue coming back to backlashes later on, right? Because it's going to go to the landlord, it's going to go back to you. Either way, it's going to go back to both. So, make sure that you cover your I's and T's on that aspect of it, that there isn't an issue with it. And so now the condominium, the guy doesn't want to move out. The guy's got the dogs in there. So now they're fighting. what can the board do?
Well, the board will put pressure on the landlord,
But what can they do to him?
find the landlord.
They can find the
They can
landlord.
find the landlord, their legal team, because each condominium has a legal
board.
team,
Of course.
right?
Trust me, they're always building up those equity funds.
That's right. That's
I'm going
right.
through that now.
Their legal team will put you on the clock for sending you out letters. And each letter they send out, guess who's paying?
Bingo. Money,
That's
money,
right.
money.
That's right.
$1,000.
Easily. And if there's 7 to 8 months of letters being sent out because the landlord has to pursue an eviction through the board, guess who's going to be paying for that too?
The landlord.
The landlord.
So let's just change this. So they went in there, they had no pets. They were told no pets,
Mhm.
the tenants. And all of a sudden now they got one little dog, but you know what? They don't want to have one little dog. They want to get a bigger dog. So now they got 2 dogs.
Are they in a condo?
They're in a condo.
Okay. Does the condo allow for it?
No
Oh
dogs.
boy. Okay. So again, it goes back to your lease. You have to
But on the lease,
disclose.
when we read up the contract, no pets or animals allowed. It's right
Right.
in the lease.
Okay, so if it's a condominium and it says no pets allowed, and they've
That's right
got
in
a
the board,
pet,
and it's right in the contract, both.
and the board does not allow them,
Yes.
then they cannot have a pet.
So you'd have to go for an eviction.
Same process. Serve the notice, file with the board, go through the board, submit your evidence, the lease, the condo corporation rules, and the board will make a determination. You know, unfortunately, a lot of agents think that the landlord determines whether or not the tenancy is terminated. No, it's the board who makes that determination, not the landlord.
So the board would actually evict them.
The board will issue an order, and it's up to the landlord to enforce that order. That's if the board orders an eviction.
If I got 2 dogs, I'm not getting out. And they've had complaints by a number of tenants or people that live there, whatever. They're going to want the dogs gone. The people can say the dogs got to go. So, but the people don't want to let their dogs go because
Sad.
that's their kids. They're like kids.
That's right.
We're not letting them go.
That's right.
Right. So you got to battle.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. And the board will make that determination.
So what repercussions? So it really sets on the tenants totally because they were said no pets originally. It's right in the contract.
Yes.
And they brought in pets under their own whatever.
In the contract, backed up by the condo
By
corporation's
both parties. It was
declaration.
done
Yep.
perfectly well. So you have a legal issue to get them out of there. They don't want to get out of there.
Through the landlord and tenant
So we
board.
got to go through
They have
landlord
to.
board, and that's a big fight.
That's right. It's an uphill battle because it's going to take time to get there. Once you get that order, you now have to enforce the order by way of an eviction. So that order gets applied to the sheriff's office. The sheriff will then take probably 4 to
I
6,
said 2 weeks.
4 to 8 weeks to give you a date and time for an eviction.
So here's another one from Thermaton. Due to unforeseen circumstances, can the landlord change his mind after serving an N12 notice to the tenant?
Oh boy, this is a very
So I served you an N12
yeah.
because you weren't paying the rent and now you paid the rent.
Well, the N12 is for landlord's own use.
Yeah.
Yeah. So are you saying that you're going to be moving in?
Well, due to unforeseen, can the landlord change his mind after serving an N12 notice to the tenant?
Yeah. So the N12 is a notice because you want to move in.
I want to move in.
Yeah. So let's say, yeah, you're right. I upset you. I wasn't paying the rent. You served me the N12 because you said, get out. I want to move in now. And then I paid and you said, okay, now you can stay.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Here's the problem. Okay. If I haven't found a place and you say, Bita, you can stay, I can stay and I'll stay and there's no issue. But if I found another place, if I move out and then you say you can stay, well, I've already incurred costs. Right? I can bring an application against you as a landlord on bad faith because you served this notice not with clean hands. Right? And the cost consequences that are attached to the N12, they're extremely heavy because a landlord can be sued for up to $35,000 at the landlord and tenant board.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's just at the board. Now the rules have changed. Bad faith evictions, you're looking at up to $100,000 for personally owned properties.
So they could be living there for a year free, easy, more, right? That was kind of,
The thing with the board is that if you want to move into the property, it's one notice. If the tenant stops paying rent, it's another notice.
so what's that if they stop paying rent? What is that notice?
It's the notice for non-payment of rent, the N4 notice.
So it's an N4.
Yes,
So N12 if you want to move in yourself, N4 if they're not paying rent,
correct.
right? So if they're paying rent, they don't pay rent, and then they bring up the rent, then you can't evict them again. Is that correct?
I mean, if they stop paying rent and you serve an N4 and then they pay the rent, they can continue to
Right,
stay.
they can stay.
Pay to stay.
Pay to
They call it.
stay.
Pay to stay.
Pay to stay.
Yeah.
Right? So let's see what else I got. The confusion, yeah, that was at 218. I knew it was 218. We had it, Fred. We knew it was 218. I knew it wasn't 2028 because we're not there yet. So pertaining to serve notices between the tenants and landlord, if on the standard form of lease, method of communication is noted as email, should either party still send physical mail for serving notice or email is acceptable?
So let's talk about that because
Yes,
that
that's
can be
what-
disputed at the board. Okay, if in the Ontario Standard Lease, we agree to send notices via email, and then later on we go to the board because I stopped paying you, I can say, well, I already told Daryl in an email on this date that I don't want to receive any email notices, and Daryl continued to serve me
Bombard
notices.
you with email.
That's right, or notices via email. The board can actually find that I wasn't served properly in accordance with the rules.
So an email, if they're saying is not served properly,
Email is not an acceptable method of service unless the consent to service via email form is signed.
what's that for?
That's called the consent to service via email
So
form.
consent.
Consent to service via email.
So that means the tenant would have to consent that you can serve me by email. So I'm a tenant. I'm not consenting to that. It's too easy,
You're right.
right? It's too easy because if you're doing an application, you're going to ask for their email. You're going to ask for their telephone number, right?
Yeah.
So their email really becomes meaningless.
Well, what you can do at the time that you're signing a lease, the Ontario Standard Lease, when you're signing that lease, you can attach the consent to service via email form as an appendix, appendix A, appendix B, or whatever.
So guys, if we're representing the landlord, I want to see that clause inserted. I do not want to see.
The form. I'll send you the form.
Yes.
You can send
I
it out
want
to
to
your
see that
team.
if we're representing the landlord, I want to see that inserted in any of our leases, right? Because the hardest thing is I know that I've had to go and run for some of the tenants or the landlords and go tape stuff on the door for them, right? Being favors, running around, going, knocking, doing the picture thing, the time, the whole bit, put it on there. We want to come in with 24-hour notice. So here's the thing. They're running, their lease is up. Their lease was up 6 months ago. They're still in the property. They're paying periodically month to month, but the landlord wants to sell the property and we want to get access. So they say we need 24-hour notice. So we used to run around, paste it onto their door, take the picture, say the time, and it was pasted on their door.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Well, that's the legal way to serve a
So
notice. for
I'm
entry.
doing it legally.
You're
then.
doing it
Okay, good.
legally.
I've learned a
But-
lot of miles that way.
Yes, that's right. That's exhausting. If you have a listing in Keswick and your office is in Richmond Hill, that's a lot of drives back and
It
forth to
is.
Keswick. So this can be avoided if you have the consent to service via email form, because then you can serve a notice of entry by sending it via email.
So that piece there would have saved me a lot of miles. I don't know, how long's that been in place? That
Since 2006.
2006. I don't do too many leases
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah,
So I haven't had to run and paste them on the door so much.
not
like
very
that.
much.
But
It's a
years
good
ago,
thing.
I used to have to do it, right?
And it's exhausting.
Yeah.
It's tiring. I know agents are busy. They don't have time
No, but
to
the
run
worst thing
around.
is I see them picking up the people or whatever.
Oh, right.
And they were there and they're just laughing, right? Look at this idiot, right? Okay. It's a game. It's cat and mouse game, right? That's really what it
Yeah,
becomes,
yeah.
right? So are you allowed to then get into the property? Because we're serving notice that it's in the landlord's right that they can go view the property with 24-hour notice.
Yes.
So now the people aren't there, the landlord's giving us the key to go open the door to go show tenants.
As long as a notice of entry has been served,
Yeah, 100%.
Legally?
Yes.
then you can enter a property. But here's the problem. Let's say you do things properly. Let's say a notice of entry has been served. let's say the tenant understands or acknowledges that, yes, Daryl's coming to show the property tonight at 4 to 5. And then Daryl arrives there with his clients and the tenant says, Daryl, you're not coming in.
Yeah, they're making a big scene.
That's right.
And that happens.
And that happens all the time. All the time. Well, what are you going to do? You're going to be confrontational in front of your clients?
Not me.
Not me.
Not me.
Right? So
Right.
the best thing to do in these circumstances, give feedback to the listing agent so that they can inform their clients that maybe we need to think of another strategy because showing this property with this type of tenant is very difficult.
But on the Toronto Real Estate Board, under rules and regulations, we cannot put something on the board without having access to get into that property.
There you go.
Or we get fined.
That's right.
So it's a double-edged sword here.
It is.
So we take a listing to help, one of our landlords, and it's our duty to allow other parties to come and view that property. But we've got a difficult tenant. We're letting them know the 24-hour notice, what's in there with the email or whatever at their door, and they've been notified that we can go in. But again, they're making noise. I just got in, I'm not feeling well, whatever. So when COVID was there, they all had COVID. So that was COVID period. We all got COVID. Nobody can come in for
That's right.
2 weeks or whatever.
Yeah, we're working from home. Our kids are doing online
Yes.
schooling. These were major
So
challenges.
that was during COVID. So
Yeah.
now I don't know what the next battle is, but we just got home. We're tired, and we didn't know.
We're still working from home.
We didn't know. We didn't get
Right?
the notice, whatever. Right?
That's another challenge.
But we have proof. If I'm the listing agent, there's the email that went out.
Yeah.
And there's the time. So you've been served properly.
Yeah.
Right.
But has the consent to service via email form?
Yeah, we're doing that.
Okay, we're doing that. Okay.
Right?
Make sure.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Everything
Yeah.
on my listings will have that.
Good.
There will not be a listing on our side where the serving the landlords. Serving the tenants, I don't have that authority. We're just looking
For
after
the
the
landlord.
tenant.
Yeah.
So we have no control over that. As the landlord people that represent, will make sure that everything is in properly. That is covered.
Yes.
But would I get into confrontation? Absolutely not. I would call the landlord and say, here's the problem. They're refusing us to let us in. And then I got to call the Toronto Real Estate Board and saying, we have the right to go in there, but unfortunately they're not allowing us to get in there because if I'm another agent, I can make a complaint on listing agent that we're not having access to the property.
Yes.
Where we'll get fined, right? So they'll either tell us to rectify it right away, or another one, it'll go against you. So it's like I say, that's in a catch-22, guys. You have to follow the rules by the Toronto Real Estate Board, but then you got to follow the rules of the Landlord and Tenant Act. Even though we have the right to go in, we're not going to go in there and go get in a fight with any tenants in it. That's not our responsibility. And who knows what could happen, right?
Yeah, it's not professional in front of your clients.
Well, a lot of things could happen
Yeah,
you don't want to happen.
that's
in that
right.
situation. So then you've got to get the landlord to find other actions, and that may to have them removed,
That's right.
right? So we're coming down in time. Does anyone here in this live audience here have a question that they would like to ask us? One hand, let's start with Jay. Can we get a zoom in on Jay, please? Where's Napoleon or Leanne?
Third, they said we are only two occupants, me, my wife. Couple. They ended up bringing four. How long time it takes to evict them and how much it total cost approximately?
Okay, so let's talk about your first question. Let's break it down. What's your first question? Repeat your first question again.
Well, at the NSF check,
Okay.
if you put it check, 2-3 checks already gone back.
So 3 months of checks haven't gone through.
Okay. So if the checks are coming back as NSF, the landlord should be serving notice for non-payment of rent. Okay. And then
How quick would you do that?
the day after rent is due.
So guys, this is very, very important because I see this is one of the biggest things landlords do. I just cashed my check. Today's the 5th, and I just cashed my check. So if it's not sufficient, then I'm already 5 days already, it'll be 6 days before you even
Yeah.
know, 7 days, right?
Yes.
But that's why you have to file immediately.
Immediately after you find out that that check is NSF, serve that notice. Because if you don't, if you wait 2-3 months, it's already going to take you 7 to 8 months to get to the board. You're adding additional time to that. Does that answer your question?
So immediately. I know there was
Yeah.
another one over here. So Brian first. Stand up, Brian, for I can.
The landlord wants to take possession of the place. Is that any way to be disputed by the
It can be disputed by the tenant. In fact, in that notice, absolutely. That's why it
They
could
do
be
lie
disputed.
sometimes.
Yeah. Believe it or not, they do.
So the question is, so if they've been served an N12, which an N12 is that the owner is going to move into the house, a family member, it doesn't have to be him himself or her himself, a person in the family, correct? They're going to move, they would have to move into the condo or the house or whatever the rental unit is. Could be a trailer, whatever it is, right?
Yeah. You're asking, can the tenant dispute that? Correct? Yes. Yes. So usually, I mean, not, I would say 7 out of 10 times the tenant says, I want to wait to go to the board because I want proof that the landlord's actually going to be moving in. So they contest the notice. At the board, the landlord is going to have to prove why they require the property. Is the property closer to their work? Are they renting right now? What is the status? Why do they want to move in? And then the board will make that determination as to whether or not the tenancy is terminated.
So so
That's
basically, Brian, what she's saying is you're at the mercy of the board, whether they believe you that a family member, you or a family member is going to move in there, because you have to give them very good reasons, because a lot of landlords want to get them out, say they've got a family member moving in and they just either want to sell it or rent it out to someone to get a higher rent, right?
That's right. In fact, in the N12, it tells the tenant, if you disagree with this notice for whatever reason, you don't have to move out. So if the tenant feels that the landlord is lying, or if they in fact want to sell the property, then they don't have to move out. They can stay in the property until a hearing date is held. That's right. So service dogs are not considered quote unquote animals or pets, right? So an exemption in the condo rules would be service dogs.
They can't, like, someone came in here with their dog and there was a complaint, it's a service dog. I cannot stop them from bringing their dog into the office, right? If it's a service animal, they have full rights as a person to go virtually anywhere, restaurants or whatever. It's a service animal. So, well, because it's not.
Yeah,
They've got to go under, they have to have papers.
they
prove
have to
that
have
there's
documentation
Yes,
to prove
real
it.
documentation.
Yeah.
Right? Hold on, Rima.
There's really nothing a landlord can do if the condo board allows it, but
No,
the
but he put
landlord
in his
does not.
contract. I put in my contract to you, no pets.
Yeah, but the
I'm a
law,
miserable SOB.
yeah, but the law trumps your contract.
Oh,
Unless the condo board says, yeah.
so guys, listen, I want you to understand that, because, I'm an animal lover and I know Bita is also, but there's a lot of people that don't like animals, right? So, the landlord says absolutely no pets of any type in whether a condo, trailer, house, whatever it may be. Now, the tenant says, screw you. Okay, that's fine, but I got a couple of cats. I'm moving in there, right? So let's say it's a condo building and the condo building says, yes, you're allowed to have up to 12 pounds or 18 pounds. There's nothing that me as the miserable landlord could do. I'm just shit out of luck.
That's
I'm
right.
gonna have to put up with it.
And I'm just going to just dive off your comment. Any terms that are inconsistent with the act that the landlords put in to try to circumvent the act are automatically void and unenforceable, even if the parties agree. Okay.
Let's go to right there, Charlie. So mixed,
Are you ask-
so she's asking, they have mixed kids and they're sharing a room. But I don't think.
Yeah,
there's
I've
any
never heard of that.
Landlord-Tenant Act has any right over that.
In fact, if the landlord tries to evict someone because of their children, that opens themselves up to liability. That is a
legal
human
liability,
rights.
right?
That is a human rights claim. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're hiring the tenant as a contractor, the service contract is not included in the lease. It's not an appendix to the lease. It's totally separate. It depends on what you put in that service contract. When I'm hiring a contractor to shovel the snow for my property, I want to make sure that that contractor has insurance, right? In case somebody slips and falls. If a landlord wants to take the risk and hire the tenant who doesn't have insurance, that's a risk that they take. It's up to the landlord.
So we have a few more. How much time you got?
I don't know.
It's
You
up
tell
to
me.
If you don't mind answering, like I got a
Not
bunch of
at all.
hands here.
Let's do
And
it.
I would like to sooner go to the people that are here live because you are here. So I went on you with that. And then the people that are in the audience, if we get time, we're going to answer your questions also. So let's go with Nick here first.
Hi, Nick.
Let's try and keep it to one question because I want to try and get everybody get an opportunity.
We usually put in our leases, these are the occupants we need. Now, my understanding is that there's nothing unless it circumvents something.
Correct. So if you bring in another occupant or a roommate, the landlord there's nothing. Now, a landlord does have a say. If I say, landlord Daryl, I'm bringing in my friend Nick and I want to add Nick to the lease. Then the landlord can ask for your paperwork.
Yes, but if they don't want to be added to the lease,
There's nothing.
Well, that's why I was
right.
telling you about that. My client, he has the actual person he rented it out to is not even there. He left,
Yeah.
right? So he's stuck with somebody else there.
My other question is, it was brought to our attention. Really, we put it on these, tenants' responsibility. Apparently, now we've exercised the people. You can't do that. So what I do is I put what's in here indicating that give $1 or $2 a tenant. Now, how accurate is that?
Okay.
So the question here, for those that can't hear that, Nick is saying, so they've rented out the property and they're saying the tenant is responsible for the grass cutting and snow plowing and stuff like that. So he's asking me to, is that what the question is?
Yeah, what's the legality?
Right.
Apparently, that's not the case.
Yeah.
How do you?
So snow cutting,
Grass cutting and
grass
snow
cutting and
blowing.
snow removal should never be included in a lease agreement because the law, section 20 says that the landlord is responsible to maintain, right? Now, the tenant can actually dispute it at the board. If they've been doing it for, let's say, 2 or 3 years, they can bring an application through the board and ask for payment. Now, you mentioned that you have in there that the landlord will pay the tenant $1. Well, whatever, $2, $20, $50.
Whatever.
What is the average it would cost to have someone shovel the snow? That
$40 anyway. at
right.
least.
Whatever the case
$50.
is, if the landlord wants a tenant to undertake that responsibility, it should not be included in the lease. Totally separate agreement. Because if the tenant says, I don't want to do this anymore, Nick, hire someone. Then you as a landlord have to go there and you have to take care of the grounds, or you have to hire someone. Don't include it in your leases.
A clause pertaining to a discounted rental amount.
Never, ever. No discounts. No discounts.
Now, Jade?
So my question is, so let's say I have a tenant in my rental place, and so the tenant hasn't been paying for a few months. I serve them the N12 and I say, I'm gonna move it to this property myself. The tenant gets out and and I don't move in. I decide that I'm gonna put it up for sale, and it's a quick sale, 45 days. The tenant finds out on the 46th.
I guarantee you the tenant will find out all the time. I'm going to tell you right now, guys, they're going to be watching for 1 year. I promise you that. Vito will tell you the same thing. Tenants know the Landlord and Tenant Act better than any landlord. And if you're a victim on an N12 for 1 year, they will watch whether you moved in, you sold it, you rented it. They'll know. And they will take action against you because it's free money to them.
Google alerts.
The
Yes.
question is, they find out on the 46th day, the day after it's sold and everything's done. Can they still go after the landlord? If they can, how much time do they have to still go after the landlord?
The closing has nothing to do with it. Okay.
It's the action.
It's the action.
What they did.
So the tenant has 1 year from the date that they move out to see what happened to that property. Did the person who was supposed to move
July
in
5th
actually
today
move
to
in?
July 5th of 2024.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. That's right.
Guys, don't listen. If you're representing a landlord, you need to let them know the tenant will watch them for 1 year. They don't think we're moving out of province. We're going to go to another province, but you've evicted us. They're not happy with you because they've been evicted, and they know there's money to be had for them if you do anything different than have yourself or a family member move in there. So if you're representing a landlord, you need to let them know the precautions that they need to take, that doesn't happen to them, right? That's simple. Now, one at the back there, right there, you.
So the landlord can move into the house and rent out a
Portion of
room
it.
or a portion of it.
Yes.
They can do that.
It's called affordability. I mean,
That's right.
you know what? It's like a tenant moves in, he has 3 roommates coming in there. You put on the thing, it's only 1 person. Meanwhile, there's 4, right? So yeah, the landlord has that right to do that.
Oh, you're referring to a house, right?
She's just talking to a house
Yeah.
like 1 unit,
Yeah.
not a multiplex or triplex or anything like that.
A regular house, ground floor, second floor, and a basement.
Mhm.
The tenant rents all the floors.
The entire house. Yeah.
They get 12
Mhm.
Then the land.
And rent out the basement. The landlord can do that, or rent out a room or rent out 2 rooms. They can do that. So They're not obligated, use the term obligated. They're not obligated. If they want, they can say to the tenant that, you can rent out the basement. I'll provide you with, you can, and pay only for the basement, right? They can do that.
Frank? Hold on, what's an N11 form?
The N11 is an agreement to end the tenancy.
Okay. So whose agreement is that, from both parties?
Yeah, it's kind of like a mutual release.
It's a mutual release,
Right.
okay.
So the N11, I call it the golden ticket, because once it's signed, it's filed with the board. Once it's filed with the board will issue an ex parte order, which is just a fancy legal term for an eviction order without a hearing. So if the tenant changes their mind,
Which they do.
that's right, which they do, the landlord can enforce an eviction when they have that order.
No,
Enforcing
no.
takes 4 to 8 weeks.
That one with the N11 expedites. It's Federal Express, just going bang right
Yeah.
through, right? It's streamlined.
Once you have that order, you take it
That's
to the
why she
sheriff.
said it's the golden ticket.
That's the golden
right?
ticket.
The golden ticket. No, Jay. No. I've asked. No, Jay. No.
It's 4 to 8 weeks. It's the order that the board issues when you file the N11. Let me clarify. When an N11 is signed by all parties, it should be filed with the board ASAP. Okay. The board will then issue an eviction order, the ex parte order that I mentioned. It's
expedient.
It's about 3 to 6 weeks before they issue that order. When you have that order, in that order, it should contain the same termination date in your as it does in your N11. If the tenant does not leave, then you can enforce that order. You can take it to the office of the sheriff and file for an eviction. Automatically goes to all parties.
All
One copy
parties.
to the landlord, one
Everybody.
to the tenant. Yeah.
So you got a couple more minutes. I got a couple questions
Mhm.
here on this. No more questions from the floor. Guys, thanks for your questions. No, Rima Yasmin. So here's one from Chris Albright. If you can't give notice until after a tenanted property is sold, how can you guarantee vacant possession? Could be a deal breaker, sign N11. Can you sign an N11 at the beginning of the tenancy? Not as a condition, but if mutually agreed upon.
Guys, as agents, you should know that there's no guarantee to vacant possession. On a tenanted property, there's zero guarantee, because the bets are riding on the tenant for the tenant to leave for you to close your deal. Zero guarantees on vacant possession.
Guys, this one is, listen, you've helped me out on a couple of these, I'll tell you right now. Trust me, thank you. But this is so important that you understand that, guys. You as the realtor cannot guarantee vacant possession. The landlord, if he wants to do that, you need to caution him that he can't even guarantee that. We'll do our best of our abilities to have the tenant, vacated, but you can't guarantee they'll be vacated. Because we know in 11s, they go Pinocchio, and they don't make a move, and then it could take 3, 4, 5 weeks to get them.
It's still time.
Takes time.
Better than 7 to 8 months.
Yes, better than
Right?
7, 8 months, right? So I have one more here. If a landlord has sold his property, the tenant who refused to sign the 11 form but allowed all showings, and was notified the property was sold, then they had 3 months to find a new rental. They are now refusing to leave. Can they do that? Landlord filed an LTB and it has a hearing only in November. What will happen to the sale?
Well, hopefully the agents have something in the agreement of purchase and sale that allows them to extend the closing. Now, if there's no buyer, there's no deal, which means no deal, the tenant can continue their tenancy. The tenant does not have to vacate because the property is sold, right? It has the sale of the property has nothing to do with the tenancy. If a seller landlord guarantees vacant possession, that's on them, right? But you cannot guarantee vacant possession on a tenanted property. Doesn't work that way.
A lot of questions coming in. I know So we're already running at 2:14. Tell me, you want to end?
I'm good. Let's
Okay.
keep going.
So here's a good one because I've seen this again with animals. At the end of the lease, landlord knows the dog has damaged all the hardwood floors. What is the responsibility at that point in time?
Well, that depends. Is the tenant going to continue their tenancy? Is the tenant vacating?
Well, I'm just going to say for the argument's sake that they're going to be leaving.
Okay.
They've done extreme damages. I even know, never mind with landlord and tenant. I know when I'm selling a property where they had big dogs in big, huge houses and the big dogs never had their nails clipped and the floors just looked like a skating rink, right? So, they had hardwood floors. The guys had big dogs. They've scratched up the floor. Now that's damage.
Let's talk about that.
Yes, let's talk about that.
Landlords can go after a former tenant, right, for damages, unpaid rent, and unpaid utilities for up to 1 year after they vacated through the board. So if, for example, the dog makes,
And
damage
you're
to the
going to go take
property,
pictures. You're going to date it.
that's
You
right.
should have pictures listen,
Before
my
and
idea,
after.
before I rent something out, I always take pictures beforehand. This is how the property looked. Now there's normal wear and tear, which nobody's responsible for. But you have kids that marking up the walls. You have dogs that are scratching the floors. You smashed up some countertops because you dropped something on it. The tenant is responsible. Why does the landlord have to cover that cost? Because they've abused the property. Because lots of times it's not their property. They don't give a darn. And that's what happens, right? So they have their legal rights to go after the tenant for up to 1 year,
One
right?
year, 1 year.
So what happens now? I filed, and it obviously always takes time. So once I filed, that could take longer, no? Or yes?
Once you file it, it's still 7 to 8 months. How do you file them? Well, that's a good question, Diane. You have to hire a skip tracer or a PI, Facebook. If you have their
Most times,
information,
you should know where they're going. Hopefully,
yeah, I'm. Daryl, you should know.
I'm trying to be kind. I take kindness with everybody,
Hire a PI. That's how you can find them.
right? So in other words, they might dodge out like it's an overnight run. In commercial, you go to the building, it's rented out. You go the next morning, it's cleaned out.
Utilities is a huge problem.
Yeah.
That's right. And when they stop paying utilities is when they stop paying rent or vice versa. But some people pay the utilities and then they stop paying rent because the service provider will shut off utilities quicker than you getting a notice of hearing.
Okay, I got one other one right here from Preeti. Hi, Preeti. If a landlord has sold his property, the tenant who refused to sign the N11 form but allowed all showings and was notified the property sold and they
That's
had
the same
3 months, that's the same one. Okay. So is there any more? Here's one here. Sam, all decisions made by LTB enforceable for recovering debt, or should one take the order to small claim court to make it enforceable?
You have to go to the small claims court to enforce an order. The board doesn't enforce orders. They just issue them.
Let's take one back here. Stand up. Come up here. I can't hear you there. Come up. Don't be shy, because this girl's done like 50 rentals in the last year.
Wow.
Last year, I had a property that I rented. They want to rent this property. They asked us to sign, rent contract that they really want to rent this property. Sign. Now, they want us that
What did they sign?
at that
What did they sign?
okay.
In the contract. So it was written in the contract.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So those clauses are not enforceable. Yeah. Even if an N11 was signed at the time that you were signing the lease, it's automatically void. That N11 is void. It says so in the agreement, the N11 agreement to end the tenancy. It says cannot be signed at the time that a lease agreement is being signed. Yeah, they don't have to leave because they've signed this agreement, right? In case they sell the property, if they serve notice, your client is going to have to make a decision as to if they want to contest the notice or if they want to leave. You're welcome.
Good question. So I'm going to wrap it up. I have one right here. Is it legal to mark up the rental price and then lease at a discounted market value in order to avoid rent increase guidelines? So a property with a market value of $2,000, for example, is rented for $2,500. You give the tenant a $500 discount. Then when it comes time to rent increase, you've already had it saying $2,500. That sounds pretty illegal to me.
Yes.
Like that, like just.
No,
reading
you
that,
can't do
it
that.
Sounds like fish. So if it smells like fish,
Yeah.
sounds like fish, it's fish. No. Right?
You got it.
Right? Guys, that's fraud. That's really what that is. So I won't say the name of the person that said that, but that's fraud, guys. So
Great question, though.
yeah, it's a great
Good
question,
one.
right? So I want to wrap up our time. I can't thank you enough, Bita. It's like the time is now 2:21. We had her for an hour and she's been here for an hour and 21 minutes. I'd like to give a big hand for Bita, for everybody here.
Thank you, everyone.
And, it's such a great conversation piece because especially when we open up the floor, everybody gets to ask their questions and stuff. So I really, really enjoyed that. But, we didn't have you since 2 years, but I promise you, if you're willing to come back on the show again, I would have you much sooner.
Absolutely.
Right?
Let's do it. Yeah.
And I know the audience would really love that because you're so informative. You got so much knowledge. And this is such a great topic that affects everybody, right? So we want to give you tiny little things from us. It's a little grab bag here.
Oh.
I got to get another shirt for him over there. It's a little shirt,
Thank
water bottle, some
you.
keys, and
Oh,
a
thank
bag
you.
and stuff like that.
Thank
So again,
you,
let's give
everyone.
Bita a great hand, guys.
Thank you.
So this is Daryl King, sharing the mindsets with Bita Lisi, the Daryl King team, a lot of us members, a couple guests in here, and everybody out there. I want to thank you for sharing your time with us today. Hope you picked up some golden nuggets. And until next time, sharing the mindsets with Daryl King. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.